Retro Studios is probably Nintendo's most valuable asset as a secondary developer. And yes, I am well aware that their track record is nowhere near as vast as many of their other second parties. Also, it is important to recognize the mass exodus of talent endured by the company during the early 2010s. Funnily enough, many of whom left for Xbox development like another Western studio under Nintendo's influence. It still endures and is presumed to be working on another massive tentpole project for Nintendo because that seems like just the thing they do. It's pretty impressive how consistently critically acclaimed retro-developed software is, especially considering both of their major accomplishments were designing resurrection titles from the ashes of beloved franchises in two totally different game genres. And yet, with all this commendation, their most recent title has been shuffled away into the fog, never be remembered.
A game, that no one talks about is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze.
Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is the game I'm referring to, and in my opinion is Retro Studios' best game, and one of the best platformers of all time. It's not shocking that a game like this fell to such a fate, but the fact that it happened so quickly with such dismissal from even Nintendo fans is what bothers me most. Part of me wishes I would have made this video a couple years ago so it could have been more relevant, but maybe the fact that I feel like this game is so undeservingly forgotten today inspired these words I'm writing. Now, its place in video game culture could be affected by the console it was produced for, the Wii U only selling 13 million units. However, the genre of 2D platforming is not respected by the majority of gamers like a Metroid Prime style game would be. 2D platformers are relegated to the idea of them either being old or indie, and unfortunately not large-scale productions of the highest design quality. You have to shoot, have an open world, or be in 3 dimensions for something to be considered truly great. What I've experienced in recent history is games like this actually feel less designed and poorly constructed when compared to a side-scroller that has been meticulously created for every experience the player has interacting with it to be fun and challenging. The density of ideas is what I've come to value, and even though a game like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze does not tally in at 300 hours like other games of its era, or have impressive physics engines that in due course does not affect gameplay whatsoever, at least none of it feels wasted in menus and wandering between the fun parts. It's a concentrated cup of stellar game design that delivers the activity I attribute my love of games to: playing them. So much of today I feel like the actual playing of games have become less important, as the biggest releases are often the most pedantic experiences in the medium. Passive gameplay is on the rise, and you are expected to complete simpler and simpler tasks in the most extravagant backdrops and scenarios. But the tasks remain dull and unrefined. Not saying a game in 3D can't be good, but many of them being released today aren't. But they are pretty to look at. Retro once made a game called Metroid Prime, and it was a great example of how good 3D games can be, and once the trilogy was completed, many of their employees left. You can see their influence throughout the industry, especially in one of gaming's biggest franchises, Halo. And yet the 343 Industry Halo games are flashy, bombastic, expensive, and ultimately pedantic experiences that fall into the void of IGN promos. The priorities are misaligned. However, I feel like I'm getting a little off topic. This is not a deconstruction of AAA games today, maybe someday, but a reconstruction of this game's legacy and its place in Nintendo's history. A game which apparently no one even wanted in the first place.
I don't want that game right now.
We want something new.
I think the sort of Nintendo core of the faithful, the ones that do, I think many of which have still not bought into Wii U, wanted something else.
And I thought, overall, it was just a little samey, which is weird because I love Mario games and they come out every year.
Mm.
Unfortunately, a stigma has arisen that if it isn't Mario, don't bother making a platformer, and even that might not be true anymore. Platformers can feel different, and at this point I consider Mario the vanilla of the genre, and any deviation from that style is a pleasant surprise. Sure, it can be done poorly. Just because it isn't vanilla doesn't mean it's any worse on principle, though. Don't you think it's possible this genre has improved in any way since 1990? Earlier in this video I said that Tropical Freeze was one of the best platformers, but I only gave that caveat due to the almost sure possibility I've not played every worthy 2D platformer ever created, but I have played every Mario one, and this game is better than all of them. Hopefully I can prove this to you, or you can have no personal investment and just enjoy this incredibly long dive into a game you may have never even played. Prior to any game analysis, I want to address another major factor that may have caused this issue. To be clear, I'm attempting to explain the fact that no one cares about this game due to reasons other than its actual merit as a game. One big reason for that is Nintendo sucks at marketing, well, at least for the Wii U. It's impressive how much Nintendo didn't want anyone to like this game. From E3 reveal through its launch, I can't think of a more awkward press cycle, especially for a game that ended up being so fantastic.
I'm sure that Donkey Kong is a little upset because I imagine bananas don't grow good in the cold. bananas don't grow good in the cold.
Problem is that you keep putting this, and it seems just to be Donkey Kong specifically, if anyone's noticed, you keep putting this game in positions which everybody seems to hate it.
And the first game I worked on as a director was, well, in Japan it was known as Super Mario USA, and it was known as Super Mario Bros. 2 in America and elsewhere.
I can't blame it all on Nintendo, because Nintendo fans can often be the most delusional psychopaths, expecting with every announcement to be graced from Valhalla, the next pinnacle of game creation formed within the bosom of Shigeru Miyamoto. So just the sheer fact that Retro Studios was making another Donkey Kong Country and not the savior of the medium was not helping this game's esteem in the public eye. It was so pronounced, Reggie even had a comment on it when the game was revealed.
So I've been looking at all of the social media, and one of the big questions is, why did Retro decide to do another story of Donkey Kong Country?
But still, some of these promos were just stupid.
There's a lot of cool things we want to do. The underwater levels, the 3D camera.
Previous titles, the camera showed only a side-scrolling view from the side. But this time, we tried revolving the camera around, like off to the back and to all sorts of different angles.
The camera will spin and show you dynamic scenes that enable new gameplay experience.
I love the silly focus on this rotating camera, the one design aspect of this game feeling completely tacked on as a Nintendo's out-of-touch solution to appeal to hardcore gamers that like 3D games. Which I guarantee this game is more hardcore than anything they've played. Let's not forget the hype they try to build up around this fourth playable character.
This time around, we've included Dixie and Diddy, as well as one other character I can't talk about yet as playable characters.
No, it's not King K. Rool, you frickin' maniacs. Even with something as simple as a character reveal. You people. What is this? What does it say here? Let's start calling this game a remake of Super Mario Bros. 2 US, but in quotes with DK instead of Mario. No, that's really dumb. What? The culmination of all this build-up? First, they delay the game till February, pretty much cementing poorer sales in its original holiday launch window, even though Retro completed development in November, and then the infamous Game Awards appearance of 2013.
Okay, the VGX Awards, oh my god, it was a complete disaster. It was like a train wreck. It was watching a slow motion train wreck.
Now, I won't go into detail on the horrid show that was the Game Awards on Spike TV, but let's just say there isn't any worse press a possible Nintendo reveal could have had. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze appeared at the awards, and Nintendo decided to reveal Cranky Kong as the fourth playable character, a reveal that leaked the day before. And hilariously enough, the host didn't even try to care about.
Fantastic, right? Well, this is level 2 of Cranky Kong, and only 4 playable characters, not a 5th, right?
We're not going to reveal the 5th for you.
Come on, just
Jeff,
go ahead.
unfortunately, you're not in the game this time. I'm sorry. We got to break that news.
Japan
3D World is doing quite well here in this market, so that's wonderful.
How much money have you made?
Joel, I love these questions. I love these questions.
I don't think he loves these questions. It's like Reggie put this game on TV just to get bullied. What are you doing there, Nintendo? Get out. An underwhelming announcement, of course. I think they realized how garbage the show is going to be, so might as well not waste any good stuff they had on this travesty.
The way they hyped it up, it was disappointment for me, really. I'm sure that's the way for a lot of fans, and the whole thing was a bit of a letdown.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the exact same way, and I think having the news basically leaked beforehand, it took a lot, of the wind out of their sails.
With this disappointment, the gate to Valhalla was closed yet again because any possible reveal from Nintendo sends its fans into a frenzy of speculation bordering on an obsession of hyperbole, and finally, this game's stock plummeted to its demise in the eyes of even the most loyal fan. In the twilight of February 2014, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze released to mostly high praise. Its reception has been watermarked by some criticism I would like to debunk. There are so many things to say about the issues with the industry of games journalism, resulting in several reviews coming out that incorporate viewpoints of a person rushing through a game in a week to make a deadline, which in most cases would not be the optimum situation to enjoy it, and I want to acknowledge this difficulty so I don't come off harsh or unfair. I think the GameSpot article sums up the majority of complaints this game receives for the most part, so I'll be using this as the concession for my arguments. Now, the big highlighted quotation they decided to use was, "This is one of the least exciting platformers I've played in a long time." I assume they accentuated that for a reason, as it may encompass the reviewer's overall feeling about the game, which is why I'm addressing it first. It's hard to say anything concrete about the term exciting because a game doesn't necessarily have to be exciting to be enjoyable. I find this to be a confusing complaint. In other more negative reviews I've read of this game during my research, the problem was the opposite. In Game Cole's review, Nathaniel Hoover describes Tropical Freeze as being inside a giant bag of adrenaline popcorn in the microwave. It is utterly exhausting to play Tropical Freeze, and the last few levels honestly make me queasy with how fast-paced they get. I find this contradiction amusing, where one person can find something bland and not exciting, while on the other hand it can make someone physically ill how excited the pacing can become. Both of these reviewers are obviously seasoned gamers and find these points to be negatives, yet they are completely opposite interpretations. I feel the true answer is clear, that any game can feel like a slog if you're forcing yourself through it. Tropical Freeze, in my opinion, is a more fast-paced and difficult game than the average, so if you have a deadline to complete the main story, it might become increasingly frustrating. I get the sense that this reviewer was not initially enjoying himself and stopped paying attention after World 1 and just wanted to get the game over with. But that's just a conjecture, I'm not really sure. Oh, and by the way, if the case is made that these reviews are not produced with enough thought to be analyzed in as much detail as I'm providing, then why have standards for anything? This is a major games journalism corporation's published review that also embodies several other smaller and less established reviewers' criticisms, and I disagree with it. I have nothing against the man who wrote this review, nor does it completely sour my opinion of his entire body of work. I'm simply reading the words on the page and responding to them. I also don't care about the number. It doesn't mean anything without the actual words behind it. I don't feel I can accurately analyze excitement without taking into consideration all the aspects of this game, so let's look at a more tangible criticism first. There's something about Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze that's just a little off. Okay, something even more tangible, please. Quick insert, this whole opening paragraph is annoying. Maybe it's the way Donkey Kong doesn't quite land with the firm-footedness you'd expect from a Nintendo platforming mascot. There it is! I addressed this earlier in the video, that the simple fact it doesn't feel like Mario means it's inherently worse. Now this reviewer is a self-proclaimed Rayman Legends lover, as he compares it to Tropical Freeze later in the review. It's obvious this grievance that it isn't like Mario doesn't affect that game's quality. How fortunate. I think Rayman Legends is a perfect example of a platformer feeling different from Mario but still being great. I definitely wouldn't describe the floaty feel to Rayman Legends platforming as firm-footedness. All I can say is it's not vanilla. Is it because Nintendo made both Mario and Donkey Kong that all their own games have to contain a specific feel? Isn't a huge criticism of Nintendo on the internet that their games all feel the same? Well, now that one of their titles doesn't, they get derided for it. So I thought I would compare Mario character physics from New Super Mario Bros. U with Tropical Freeze. Let's see how slippery those banana peels are in Retro's game. First of all, the most apparent difference is Donkey Kong takes up a larger percentage of the screen than Mario. In Tropical Freeze, the camera isn't always consistent, but it is reliably less zoomed out than the camera in Mario Bros. U. That in itself, divorced from controls, may equate to a difference in the feel of progression. The sense of impact for DK is much more pronounced than Mario, which would make sense. He's a gorilla or ape, whatever he is. He's a Kong. The jump height is sensitive to the button pressure, like many platformers, but the farther the distant Donkey Kong falls from, the greater the impact is made to look. Mario does not have this. The puffs of smoke effect is the same, no matter how high you fall from. This impact feels noticeably heavier than Mario and creates a slightly longer delay between separate jump attempts. The falling speed doesn't initially feel very different, but after some testing in Tropical Freeze, it ultimately is faster due to it actually accelerating on the way down and Mario's falling speed staying consistent. This is an important distinction and what makes Tropical Freeze feel a lot faster and more tactile. The greater impact combined with the ramped up fall speed definitely create a distinct feel from Mario, but not really related to firm-footedness. There's no run button in Tropical Freeze, instead does it exist a roll button. A roll jump would be the running jump equivalent for this comparison. Let's take a look at the involuntary momentum upon each landing, which I would describe as the most crucial factor to firm-footed landing. In any ice level, this is the part that annoys people because as they land, it is difficult to stop and very difficult to change direction. If you let go of the control stick while running or landing from a jump, Mario actually has the longer follow-through. Both characters can be manipulated during a jump to land with no follow-through. Mario being lighter makes him more controllable in the air. Changing direction while running is also pretty equivalent between the two characters. Hopefully this makes it clear that DK lands and moves with firm control. However, the Donkey Kong characters have this natural sensation of bulk one would get controlling something so much heavier than Mario. If this didn't exist, I would argue it would cause a massive disconnect for the player and the character on screen, having it not react to controls how it would naturally be expected to react. Let me visualize this different feel and gameplay with a simple diagram. This line represents the type of movement one experiences in a tropical freeze level, and this is what I would describe what a Mario level feels like in New Super Mario Bros. U. Neither one is like plainly worse than the other, where Tropical Freeze has a more organic and fluid motion path and Mario has a more formulated and systematic one. For me personally, I find Tropical Freezes feel more appealing and interesting, or dare I say exciting. Where Mario trumps Donkey Kong in control is the handling in the run button. In both games this button has two functions. In Mario, this button also performs the action based on Mario's current power-up, whereas in Tropical Freeze it performs a ground slam when DK is not moving. This contingency can be problematic and have you rolling or slamming accidentally. Mario's secondary function does not affect the ability to run, which is one of Tropical Freeze's faults in control. I feel I've done this point to death, but hopefully I've boiled down the appeal Donkey Kong Country physics have compared to Nintendo's mascot, and just because it is different, in no way is that a bad thing. Thank you for watching part 1 of my analysis of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. There are lots more to come with this video series. It will just take a bit longer to make. I really just scratched the surface of this game. Subscribe so you don't miss the subsequent parts, and make sure to share this video so this game can reach new players, and so can my channel. If you want to see another video that I consider up to my new standard, take a look at my Sound Euphonium video where I talk about my other passion, anime. I also started an all things nerd podcasting channel that I do with my brother called Completing the Shelf, which is something I hope you could check out and enjoy. If nothing I mentioned interested you, I can at least say thank you for watching this video. This is Second Look. I will see you in part 2.